So let us continue our discussion on low cost isolation technology. We just mentioned in previous class that the pad layer is used to prevent the white ribbon effect or to prevent defects formation, but the use of pad layer will invite some other problem, that is bird's beak and bird's head formation, and how those problems are overcome, that we will see now. And here the bird's head formation, that means increase of volume, silicon consumed silicon dioxide is formed. 1 micron silicon is producing 2.22 micron of silicon dioxide. So now because of that increase of volume, surface planarity is disturbed, isn't it? And if you want to maintain the surface as planar as possible, you can etch away little bit silicon, and then if you grow oxide, so that the total volume will be at the same level of other region. So that means here you see this is a recessed silicon with pad oxide. After pad oxide is formed, some of the silicon is etched away, and after etching away the silicon, that with a pre-calculation, how much you have to etch, you have to pre-calculate how much silicon dioxide you have to form. Okay, from that same relation, 1 micron silicon will give you 2.22 micron of silicon dioxide, or for the growth of 1 micron silicon dioxide, 0.44 micron silicon will be consumed. From that relation, we have to pre-calculate how much silicon is to be etched out, so that after growth of silicon dioxide, it will be in the same level of this region. So now this is, that means recessed silicon with pad oxide. You remove some of the silicon and then grow oxide, so that it will be at same level of here. Okay, in this way you can have some solution of the surface non-planarity. Now surface will be planar, and this is known as isoplanar process, where the surface topography will not change. If the surface is lot of ups and downs, then is a problem in metallization, as mentioned in metallization class also. Okay, now here as I mentioned, since oxidation consumes 44% as much silicon as it grows, the resultant oxide is partially recessed here, partially recessed, and has a gradual step onto the field that forms bird's head. Okay, partially recessed and gradual step onto the field. This is the field. Gradual small step will be there, but it's not the previous diagram what you have seen. So 50% of the silicon dioxide is on top of the plane. Oxide encroachment in the active area produces bird's beak, that I mentioned in earlier slide also. Encroachment in the active area, this is the active area. So oxide encroachment produces bird's beak. If the silicon is etched fast, the field oxide can be made fully recessed, resulting in a nearly planar surface. Here we obtain the nearly planar surface. Although recessed silicon with pad oxide offers isoplanar surface and reduces bird's head, bird's beak still remains. Bird's head reduces because it is isoplanar now. Since it is isoplanar, bird's head has been reduced, but bird's beak has not reduced. What is that? The lateral encroachment. This is the bird's beak, because the oxide should start from here up to this. Just directly here oxide should start. But because of the pad oxide, lateral oxide will grow, so like this, and it will encroach some of the area below silicon nitride. This area has been consumed, and here forms the bird's beak. Now how to remove that Bart's beak formation. A solution is available for that also. That is known as side wall mask isolation process or SWAMI process. SWAMI, SWAMI process, and that is known as side wall masked isolation process. In this particular process, you can remove both Bart's beak and Bart's head. I cannot say completely removal, but almost 80 to 90% you can remove using this SWAMI process. And let us now see the diagram of the SWAMI process. That is how it looks like. This is the cross-section diagram for the SWAMI isolation process. It is side wall masked isolation. That means side wall is also masked so that side wall oxidation is prevented. How? You see, initially the top silicon nitride was formed. Now after a recessing silicon dioxide, then this side wall, another second silicon nitride is formed. That if you form another silicon nitride in the side wall, then it cannot attack the side wall. Oxygen atom cannot diffuse through the silicon nitride, and that oxide will not be formed. That means here you see vertically here you can get oxide, lateral oxidation is not much, and almost you have prevented the Bart's beak. You see the earlier diagram here. This is the Bart's beak, and the silicon nitride has gone up. Silicon nitride has gone up, and this is the Bart's beak formation. And the next diagram you see is not there. The side wall, a second thin silicon nitride is deposited or formed, and then it will prevent the lateral encroachment of silicon dioxide. So there you can get planar surface, and Bart's beak and Bart's head is prevented. Now in the SWAMI process, the important consequence of Bart's beak from device standpoint are, what are those consequences? Encroachment reduces the active width of the device, reducing the amount of current that a transistor will drive. Field doping may increase the threshold voltage, reducing its drive current, known as narrow channel effect or short channel effect. SWAMI process reduces real estate waste. It reduces Bart's beak length. Real estate waste means lateral encroachment it prevented. That's why it reduces wasting of the silicon below silicon nitride. Okay, these are the advantage of the SWAMI process. Now the total sequence is not so simple, because you see you have to form thin silicon nitride at the side wall. So side wall silicon nitride formation is not easy. In the top level, silicon nitride growth is not so difficult. In the top you can grow it or you can deposit it, but side wall is not so easy. So now I will show you the process steps in a SWAMI process. The SWAMI process, this is the silicon substrate. A thermal pad oxide is grown first. Here is the substrate, pad oxide is grown. On top of the pad oxide, silicon nitride layer is deposited. This is a silicon nitride layer. Then the layers are patterned and the silicon is etched. Layers are patterned means here it has been patterned, it is a masked, because nitride and pad oxide has removed from this region and this region. That means you have to go for a lithography step. Masking step you have to follow, because you want to protect formation of silicon or oxide or etching in this region, but here you want to remove some of the silicon where you want to grow the silicon dioxide. Again, one thing is coming. When you want to go for a lithography process, then there is a problem with silicon nitride layer, which may not be ideally compatible with photoresist process. So sometimes on the top of the silicon nitride, again silicon dioxide is formed. Top level silicon dioxide is formed, and silicon dioxide is perfectly matched with photolithography process, we know. Why it is perfectly matched? Because when you want to etch silicon nitride here, then silicon nitride etching solution will etch the photoresist in many cases. For example, try to understand the point. So now with silicon pad oxide and nitride, if I want to go for lithography, then what will happen? When you are going to etch the silicon nitride here, photoresist will be there, covered by, on the top of the nitride, photoresist will be covered. And there, when you are going to etch silicon nitride, that photoresist will react with silicon nitride etching solution. But photoresist will not react in buffer hydrofluoric acid etching, which is the etching solution of silicon dioxide. So silicon nitride, then if this particular layer is not protected by photoresist layer, so here also silicon nitride will etch. So in order to solve that problem, what we do, we use another silicon dioxide layer on top of silicon nitride, and we do the lithography with the silicon dioxide layer, then there is no problem. After photoresist process, you remove first silicon dioxide here, then you remove the photoresist on the top of silicon dioxide here. Okay. Now the silicon dioxide will be covered by silicon nitride here. So this nitride will not be etched by silicon nitride etching solution. Once a layer of silicon dioxide is covered on top of nitride, this nitride layer will not be etched. But here easily you can etch silicon nitride layer. So that is why we require tri-layer structure, oxide, nitride, oxide. That will come in isoplanar low-cost process. I will come in the next slide. So now a second layer of nitride is deposited. As such, a second here, after the pattern is over, then you etch silicon here. Some of the silicon is etched, some of the silicon is etched here and here. After etching the silicon layer, then we do the implant, which is field implant, which is required in case of MOS. Because in the field oxide, before growth of the field oxide, we implant, which is known as the field implant, so that below threshold, below field region, the silicon layer will not be inverted, and a P plus diffusion layer, a P plus dopant is implanted here. That is known as the field implant. After the field implant, then second layer of nitride is deposited and anisotropically etched. That is here, you see. Yeah. This is the second layer of nitride, nitride 2. This is the first layer nitride. After the field implantation is over, then second layer of nitride is deposited, and it is anisotropically etched. Why anisotropically? If you etch isotropically, the side wall also will be etched. Anisotropic means vertically, only here it will be etched, and here vertically it will be etched, but side wall there is no etching. That is anisotropic etching, and that is done by RIE, reactive ion etching. Okay, and a side wall nitride layer effectively seals the active region. This side wall and this side wall, along with the top layer nitride, which will seal the active region. This is the active region. In all sides it is sealed. Now thermal oxidation is done for field oxide. Here thermal oxidation is done, thermal oxidation is done, field oxide is grown, and the field oxide will be grown here. Nitride and pad oxide are removed, and then you will get the clean surface here. After the field oxide is grown, the nitride layer, this nitride layer, and that means this nitride and this nitride, nitride 2 and nitride, and both are removed. Then the pad layer oxide is removed. Then you are getting the active layer. Okay. So in this way you can create the islands, silicon islands, where you can form the active components of the device without lateral encroachment and without disturbing the surface tenuity. Okay. Now I will discuss on isoplanar isolation process. Isoplanar isolation process means a isolation scheme is a low-cost isolation scheme where surface planarity will be maintained and Bart's beak will be as small as possible. Isoplanar oxide isolation. This is known as isoplanar oxide isolation. Here basically the sum up of the earlier low-cost process. What is done in this particular case? The Swami or sidewall mask isolation is really important when the sidewall height is large, but the epitaxy thickness is small, less than 1 micron, then sidewall is less. In that case, only isoplanar oxide isolation may be sufficient for isolation process. So that's why the Swami process in mostly may not be required. In most cases, Swami process may not be required for the prevention of Bart's beak and Bart's head formation. And Bart's beak and Bart's head formation is severe if you grow thicker low-cost oxide, thick low-cost oxide, then long time oxidation. So sidewall oxidation, sidewall encroachment is more. But if it is already epitaxial thickness is less, so that means automatically that encroachment is very small, and you can get isoplanar, and we can avoid this Swami process because it complicates the technology. Sidewall deposition and vertical etching, anisotropic etching, these two particular steps complicates the whole process. So now in this particular technique we are using, you see, the tri-layer structure. One is a pad layer is here, the silicon dioxide, then is silicon nitride, then silicon dioxide. 100 to 300 angstrom is a pad layer oxide, silicon nitride is 1500 angstrom, and on the top silicon dioxide is 1200 angstrom. And the purpose of using each layer now is clear, I think. This is very important. Why we use pad layer? Why at all silicon nitride layer is required? And why we require top silicon dioxide layer? Is it clear? The requirement of the 3 layer. Pad layer I have discussed. Prevention of the defect formation and prevention of white ribbon effect, Cui effect. Nitride layer you require for masking, for protecting the layer from the growth of local oxide, local thermal oxide. If silicon nitride is there, you cannot grow thermal oxide there, isn't it? And top layer is required to have lithography compatibility, because you have to pattern nitride. If you have to pattern nitride, you have to go for lithography, and there you have to have certain solution which will etch silicon nitride but not etch photoresist. That is very difficult, because silicon nitride etchant is normally phosphoric acid boiling. So in that case, photoresist sometimes will also washes away. At high temperature it is used, so that is the problem. So next, after deposition, because this is basically the isoplanar bipolar transistor process, so that the buried layer is formed, channel stopper is formed, that those points I will discuss in bipolar process. So in epitaxial layer, then tri-layer structure is formed, then lithography. And in the lithography, you have just, you see here, this region where you need the low-cost isolation, the tri-layer structure, oxide, nitride oxide structure is removed here in this portion and this portion in lithography. First you etch silicon dioxide, then when you are patterning, at the beginning there was a photoresist layer on top. Okay, and with the photoresist layer you can remove silicon dioxide here, the top silicon dioxide. Okay, after removing top silicon dioxide, then you remove the photoresist. Then if you remove photoresist here, the silicon dioxide there, top silicon dioxide, then you dip the whole thing in silicon nitride etchant, and in this region silicon nitride will be etched, but here it will be protected by silicon dioxide. Silicon nitride will not etch. Once silicon nitride is etched completely, then you dip it again in silicon dioxide etch, and silicon dioxide with etched pad layer, at the same time top silicon dioxide will be etched, isn't it? When it will remove the pad layer, that time here top silicon dioxide will also be etched. That means you are getting a pattern, good pattern. Okay. Now next step is recess. You have to recess it. That means some of the silicon dioxide, sorry, silicon layer is etched away, so that at the top you are getting the planar. You see here now recessing. Some of the silicon has been removed, and that is 55% of the desired silicon dioxide. 55% of the desired silicon dioxide is removed. If you want 1 micron silicon dioxide to grow, that means if your epitaxial layer thickness is 1 micron, then you have to remove 0.55 micron of silicon from the top. Then what is the remaining? 0.45 micron. 0.45 micron will give you complete 1 micron silicon dioxide, because 0.44 or 0.45 micron gives you 1 micron. So that means it will be exactly planar. So that is done here. You see, 55% of the desired oxide is silicon is removed, and then you grow local oxidation of silicon. If you grow local oxidation here, this portion it will be prevented, no growth of oxide, because silicon nitride will cover silicon nitride. Once the complete 1 micron gold silicon dioxide is formed, thermal oxidation, and then you remove the silicon nitride, you etch the silicon nitride, and then you remove the pad, and you are getting this structure. This is one island, this is one island, and even you see this is the collector contact. Collector contact and is the base and emitter contact. These two are again separated by oxide wall. That is also another advantage. So this is isoplanar oxide isolation process. Okay. Next, I will discuss another process which is highly suitable for VLSI fabrication or ULSI fabrication. This is also for VLSI oxide isolation. For ULSI fabrication, where the component density is nearly 10 to the 5 or 10 to the 6 parts centimeter square. So in those cases, which sort of isolation technology is used? That is trench isolation. I will discuss that point now. Trench isolation. So in a trench isolation, why it evolved? Obviously, standard low-cost process has got certain limitation, and what are those limitations? The standard low-cost process for isolation is not suitable for recent VLSI with a minimum isolation width of less than 1 micron, and transistor density is much greater than 10 to the 6 centimeter square. If I allow the component density of the order of 10 to the 6 per centimeter square, then the locus is not sufficient. And if we allow isolation width only 1 micron, less than 1 micron, then isolation, this is locus, standard locus process is not suitable. Trench isolation has minimum isolation width and is highly suitable for submicron VLSIs. In this particular technique, bird's beak and bird's heads are completely removed. Bird's beak free structure is reported to achieve in trench isolation process, but it is a really complicated process. Difficult steps is to be followed to achieve trench isolation. Deep trench isolation scheme uses trenches of fixed width of dimensions 0.35 to 1 micron width. You can see how the dimensions are reduced 0.35 to 1 micron and 2 to 5 micron depth. Deep trench, this is deep trench isolation scheme, uses trenches of fixed width of dimension 0.35 to 1 micron width and 2 to 5 micron depth. Trenches of 0.25 micron width and 10 micron depth have been demonstrated. You see how much is the aspect ratio. If aspect ratio is defined by height by width, that means 10 micron divided by 0.25. This particular trench is used not for device isolation, this is used for making capacitance, which is used in DRAM, trench capacitance, and it reduces lot of silicon area. Large value of capacitance is achieved with a small consumption of silicon area, that is a trench capacitor. Trench capacitors are widely used in recent DRAM VLSI process. Now, next is there are two types of trench isolation. One is known as shallow trench isolation with small aspect ratio. If the trench height is not large, then it's known as a shallow trench isolation, and aspect ratio is small. That means height by width is aspect ratio. Height is small and width is large. Height is small, width is large, that is small aspect ratio. And there, how the isolation process follows is shown here in this diagram. This technique is similar to a recessed locus. But a deposited rather than a thermal oxide is used to fill the field region. Here also photoresist, the p-type silicon, you recess it means etch little bit silicon here, and after etching removal of the silicon, you use the field implantation, the boron field implantation. After the field implant is over, then fill the trench with oxide. In the locus, what you do, you grow the oxide locally using thermal technique. But in case of this shallow trench isolation, you fill the trench with silicon dioxide. That is the difference. After trench HS by RIE, field implant is done. Reactive ion etching, because reactive ion etching will provide you anisotropic etching. Vertically it will etch the trench, laterally it will not etch. That means lateral etching consumes silicon area. So if only vertical etching is there, there is no consumption of silicon area. So you will get vertical depth. Now, next what will you do? Now you fill the, it is difficult to prevent inversion along the edge side walls. What is that one? When you are implanting, bottom wall is implanted. That means with the field implant, you can prevent inversion at the bottom. But side wall implantation is not possible, this side and this side. So there may be small inversion at the side wall, this region and this region. So once oxide, it is filled with oxide, your next job will be to planarize the surface. You have to have plane surface, because we are looking from the plane surface. So in a CMOS process, this inversion, that means the sidewall inversion, what just now I mentioned, inversion may cause excess leakage between source and drain. After filling the trench with deposited oxide, planarization must be done to remove the unwanted oxides from over the active regions. Unwanted oxides are removed by planarization technique. Okay. So this is shallow trench isolation. Next I will discuss case 2, which is known as deep trench isolation with large aspect ratio. Large aspect ratio means height is large and width is small. Clear? So the second case is a deep trench isolation with large aspect ratio, large H by W. So I say height is large and W width is small. So in this particular case, after nitride patterning, the trenches are etched, narrow trenches are etched. Etch process is critical. You have to have the good anisotropy etching technique, and RI is one such technique. Etch well must have smooth walls. You are etching this well, and one of the condition is that the wall should be smooth. Etch well must have smooth walls at no more than 85 degrees with respect to planes of the wafer. It should not be slant. Vertical only 85. Perfect vertical will be 90 degrees with the plane, but it is allowed only 85 degrees up. Exact vertical you cannot get it, very difficult. So at least near to 85 degree if you get, we can say the vertical trench. Okay, using RI technique, vertically you etch it. The walls cannot undercut the mass, because this if it is not vertical, it will undercut the mass. So that is not allowed. And the edge should end in a rounded bottom. This bottom you see is a rounded bottom. That is another criteria. The bottom should be rounded. Sharp corners cause stresses and defects during oxide filling. If the edge group have sharp corner like this is a sharp corner, this is a sharp corner. Okay. So if the sharp corners are there, then it cause stress and defects when oxide filling. So a round corner is preferable. Field implant is done next. The field implantation is done as with the shallow trench isolation case. Preventing sidewall inversion becomes more difficult in this case also, because when you are implanting, it will implant vertically here, but sidewall is not implanted, so there may be a chance of inversion at the sidewalls. That you cannot prevent, even in trench isolation also. Okay. Now, in that next step, what will you do? Here, after that you etch with the field implant is followed by thin local oxidation. After the field implant, you see this is the implanted region, P plus diffusion layer. Now you have grown an oxide. It's a thin layer of oxide. Here you can see this is the oxide and sidewall oxidation. This is oxide and this is thermal. This is thermally grown oxide. Thin local oxide of the order of 1000 angstrom. And now the trenches are filled with polysilicon. Now you see this may produce some capacitance, trench capacitance. How? If the polysilicon is doped polysilicon, that means here is the one electrode, and this is the trench, the oxide is there, silicon dioxide, and this side is a P substrate, and this is a P plus region. P plus region substrate, if you make a contact with the substrate, and if you take another contact with the polysilicon, then this is a parallel plate capacitance. And if the trench depth is very high, so you will have larger area, because the surrounding it will encompass all the area, na? This side to this side, so that means it will give a large value of capacitance. This capacitance is used in the DRAM circuits. And not only that, it consumes a smaller area, trench capacity vertically, lateral area consumption is less. So high density is possible. A layer of polysilicon is deposited and etches back. This polysilicon is deposited, now etched back, thick poly fills the group. If you etch back the polysilicon, then you will get exactly planar. And then you can go for second thermal oxidation, which covers the upper part of the poly with a silicon dioxide, isn't it? Second thermal oxidation oxidizes upper part of the polysilicon in the group here and minimizes the leakage. So that means this polysilicon is completely covered by oxide side and bottom. If you want to have the capacitance, trench capacitance, then top oxide is not being done. This top oxidation is not done, so that you can take a contact in the poly here, another is a substrate conduit the capacitor. But if you want to use it as a isolation technique, then it's better to use top oxidation also. So totally it is covered. Trench is filled by polysilicon. So this is the trench isolation, and it is really highly popular technique in present day high density VLSI circuit. Now after trench isolation, another is complete dielectric isolation, which is known as a SOI isolation technique. Silicon on insulated technique I discussed in ion implantation class. So that means here what is done, the bottom PN junction is replaced by a dielectric layer. And how this dielectric layer can be formed? By high energy implantation. Encasing each device in an insulating material is an ideal method of device isolation. That means side wall as well as bottom wall. Whole is covered by silicon dioxide. Generically, they are called silicon on insulator. Bottom layer is oxide, side layer is oxide, and in between that island silicon is there. So silicon on insulator or SOI. SOI devices suffer from problems related to defect density. Why SOI is not popular? Why in VLSI SOI isolation is not much used, rather trench isolation or isoplanar low cost is used? The reason is the defect formation, defect density. Because of higher defects, the SOI technologies occupy a small market area, that is the VLSI chips which are used in a radiation environment. Rad hard devices are only fabricated using SOI isolation, because SOI has got advantage of radiation hardness. One of the most promising SOI technique discussed earlier is CyMOX. I think you remember the CyMOX. CyMOX, high energy implantation, oxygen implantation in silicon, where a buried oxide is formed by implanting the wafer with 150 to 300 keV oxygen at doses of about 2 into 10 to the power 18 per centimeter square. High energy, high dose implantation, that is the CyMOX. Then you annihilate, so silicon and oxygen will react and silicon dioxide form at a greater depth from the surface of the silicon, isn't it? So that is the CyMOX process. One of the first SOI methods called dielectric isolation or DI. DI was developed to build high voltage telecommunication ICs that required electrically isolated bidirectional switches. Okay. Now I will show you a process technique, how this silicon on insulator isolation technique is obtained. Other than the CyMOX. CyMOX is the implantation technique, but without a high energy, high dose oxygen implant, you can have the complete dielectric isolation scheme. And how it is being done is shown here. You see here, this is the substrate, and in this substrate first you etch V groove. V groove etching is being done. These are deep grooves are first etched in the surface of the wafer. Then the wafers is oxidized. Thin layer of silicon dioxide is formed. In the V group also it is formed. Wafer is oxidized, and a very thick, greater than 200 micron polysilicon is deposited by conventional CVD technique. This is the thin oxide, and then polysilicon is deposited by conventional CVD technique. After that, what is done? The wafer is turned over and mechanically ground till the grooves penetrate through the wafer. Now look in the figure. Now this particular structure is made upside down. That means here in the top layer is the polysilicon, the bottom is the oxide. Now we make the upside down. Then polysilicon becomes at the bottom layer and the substrate at the top layer. So one substrate at the top layer, now you ground it, ground and polish it. You remove the substrate by grinding and polishing. If you remove the substrate by grinding and polishing, you see some up to here level you etch it. Etch means you just grind it. So that means you remove silicon up to this level. So now you see it looks like this. Just look at the figure. You just invert upside down. Now this substrate is grinded, and until the grooves penetrate, Now the thin oxide is there. This is the thin oxide. Here is the thin oxide. Similarly, if you do the upside down, then this is the thin oxide. Here is the thin oxide. Here is the thin oxide. So this is the substrate. Here is the silicon. Here is the silicon, and here the polysilicon is the base material now. Polysilicon is a container, you can say. It contains the silicon substrate, and in between polysilicon and substrate there is a thin layer of silicon dioxide, and this thin layer of silicon dioxide covers the entire periphery. It is completely dielectric isolated. Just by discussing, by looking the figure, it seems it is very simple, but it is not so. Why? Because if you grind it, lot of defects will come. Because from 500 micron silicon dioxide here, 500 micron substrate, you are bringing it down to say maybe 10 micron only, even less than 10 micron. So you can imagine how much silicon is to be removed. A removal of that much silicon will damage the silicon single crystal active area. Lot of defects will be there. That is the major problem in this dielectric silicon and insulation isolation technique. Finally, the wafer is chemically polished and devices are fabricated in the isolated island. Here you can fabricate the device, one island, the next island, here is another island. Problems are planarity, high cost, small isolation density. High cost means what? Much more defect, yield will be poor, that's why cost will be high. Very less yield is achieved, and making one such devices cost maybe more than $100 one wafer. Now the last technique which I am going to discuss in isolation is selective epitaxial isolation technology. Selective epitaxial isolation technology I need not mention separately, because in epitaxy class already I have discussed the selective silicon epitaxy. That means epitaxial film can be grown selectively and other regions can be protected by oxide. Formation of Bart's beak has limited the application of low-cost in very high density VLSI. One of the recent technique is the use of selective silicon epitaxy for device isolation. So here is epitaxy here, and in between epitaxy the silicon dioxide is there. And how to get this isolated silicon epitaxial growth So that is already discussed in selective epitaxy class. I am not repeating that. The basic feature of this technique is to combine selective epitaxy with subsequent local oxidation. So this is the local oxidation, this is the selective growth. So these are combined will give you the selective silicon epitaxial process, isolation technology. Okay. Now, starting from the ring isolation, guard ring isolation, p-n junction isolation, to the recent ones, that is trench isolation, isoplanar oxide isolation, and selective epitaxy isolation, I discussed. Those recent ones, trench and selective epitaxy, may be used very high speed and high density VLSI circuits. Now, to conclude and summarize, we may mention that the simplest isolation technique involves junction isolation. That is the simplest technique. Even nowadays, in some cases, people use junction isolation. Various locus-based methods have been widely used, but suffer from lateral encroachment and incomplete isolation at small junction separations. What is the problem of locus? Lateral encroachment and very high density you cannot get, small junction separation you cannot make. That is the problems of locus. Trench based methods have become popular for submicron technologies, isn't it? And lastly, selective silicon epitaxy for device isolation is the promising isolation technology for ULSI because of attainment of better surface planarity without any Bart's beak formation. Okay. So with this, let me stop this discussion on isolation technology. Next lecture will be on the VLSI process, that means device as well as circuit, making together bipolar or MOS or BiCMOS one by one. I will discuss in next class. Okay, thank you.